on this week's video tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how I made this really pretty pastel drip cake. So we've got a pink buttercream cake that is covered with these pastel sprinkles by Happy Sprinkles. We've got this white chocolate ganache drip going down the side, and the cake is finished off with these rainbow swirls on the top. So this is a great cake whether you're just looking for a simple design or you want to add some of these elements onto your own cakes. Okay, let's get started. So to start, I'm going to prepare my cake. Now I'm going to be using a 6-inch sponge cake for this, and I've used 1.5 times my normal vanilla sponge cake recipe that I will put a link to in the description below. So I baked 3 separate cakes in my 6-inch tins, and I'm dividing each of these into 2 layers. Now after my cakes are baked and cooled, I always wrap them in a few layers of cling film and pop them in the fridge just to firm up slightly. By doing this, it makes it a lot easier to level off my cakes and divide them into my separate layers. When the cakes come back to room temperature, they will go back to being nice and soft and fluffy. Once all my layers have been leveled and trimmed, I've then got 6 different layers, and all of my layers are just under 1 inch in height. So the total height of the cake without the buttercream is 5.5 inches. I'm going to add a thin layer of buttercream between each of my layers and add a crumb coat onto the outside. Now, because I want this cake to be nice and pastel, I'm using a really pale pink for the buttercream. Now to fill, cover and create the swirls on top of this cake, I've used 3 times my American buttercream recipe, so I will put a link to this in the description below. Now all a crumb coat is going to do is lock in any of those loose crumbs. This means that when we put on our final layer of buttercream, it's going to be nice and smooth. I'm going in with my smoothing tool, and for this I'm just using the 10-inch PME smoother, and I will put a link in the description below to all the tools that I've used throughout today's video. You want to keep the bottom edge of your scraping tool on your board at all times. I'm going in and filling any gaps where that scraper isn't connecting to the buttercream. On the top, I'm then going to take my offset spatula and pull that into the center, just taking off any excess buttercream. I'm happy with my crumb coat, so I'm going to pop this in the fridge for around 15 to 20 minutes for that buttercream to firm up so I can add my final layer. Now, when using buttercream on the side of your cake, if you find that it's full of a lot of air bubbles, what you want to do is, before you use it, just take your spatula, push it against the side of your bowl, smoothing it out, just to get rid of any air bubbles. Once that cake has come out of the fridge and that buttercream is firm to the touch, I can then add my final coating of buttercream around the outside. Now, I really hope you enjoy this video tutorial. If you do, don't forget to give this video a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this and you haven't already, then don't forget you can subscribe to the Cakes by Nature YouTube channel. You can also hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this just alerts you every time we upload a new video. So now that I'm happy with the finish of my cake, I'm going to pop this in the fridge just for around 10 to 15 minutes for that buttercream to slightly firm up. Now I'm doing this before I add the sprinkles on the side, and the reason for this is as I push the sprinkles, I don't want my hand to leave an imprint in the side of the cake. Now the sprinkles that I'm going to be using on this cake are a pastel sprinkle mix from Happy Sprinkles, and these ones are called Pastel Vibes. We have these pastel strands, so they're pink, purple, yellow, green and blue. We've got these larger pink and purple chocolate balls, and these have this really pretty shimmer to them. We also have some long pink shimmer strands, some small balls mixed in with those, and some stars and hearts in all different colours. Now, as well as these, you can also get the pastel strands separately. We've also got a tub of the shimmery purple choco balls on their own, and they do some other similar ones. So these ones are a sweet mermaid mix, or we just have some long green pastel strands. Now, if you want to add any of these sprinkles onto your own cakes, I do have a 10% off code for Happy Sprinkles. All you have to do is enter the code HAPPYLINS10 at the checkout on the Happy Sprinkle website or on the website of the cake decorating company. Now, I will put all the links and the details to this in the description below. So our cake has come out of the fridge and that buttercream has started to firm up. Now I'm going to be coming up around an inch from the bottom of the cake. Now if you're finding that your buttercream has firmed up a little bit too much and those sprinkles are not sticking, you can use a paintbrush and just go in with a small amount of water or edible glue just on the surface. I can then take my sprinkles and just push this against the bottom of the cake. And with some of those larger balls, pushing those into the cake, and the same some of our longer strands. Once you're happy with how that's looking, I'm going to take my offset spatula and just clean away any of those excess sprinkles. Now for the board that my cake is going to sit on, I've got a 10-inch drum board and this one just measures 1 centimetre in height. I'm going to roll out some white fondant, add a small amount of water onto the surface of my cake board. I can then stick down my fondant, smooth it out and take off any excess. To finish off the board, I'm going to add a white ribbon around the edge. I'm going to pop a small amount of my pink buttercream into the center of my board. Use an offset spatula to lift my cake into place. For the drip, I'm going to do it in white. Now for this, I'm going to be using some bright white candy melts. Now candy melts are different to chocolate, but if I was to use white chocolate, it would give me a slightly yellow tone to my drip. So I've got 75 grams of my bright white candy melts and 75 ml of double cream. So I'm going to be creating a ganache with a ratio of 1:1. All I'm going to do is heat up my cream until it's boiling. I can then add it to those candy melt buttons, stir it through until all of those candy buttons have dissolved. Now, if you find that your ganache is still a little bit yellower than you would like, I'm going to add a small amount of the Sugar Flare Super White to mine and then just stir it around until all of that powder has dissolved. Leave it for a few minutes so that it's cooled down completely, as we don't want it melting the buttercream on the side of our cake. I'm also going to pop my buttercream cake in the fridge for a few minutes so that it's nice and chilled. Now, the longer that you leave a ganache for, the thicker it's going to get. So I'm going to leave this one for around 5 minutes. Once your ganache has been resting but is still nice and runny, I'm going to add this into a piping bag. Before I apply the ganache onto my cake, I'm going to test how runny it is on a glass. So if it's still too thin, I can leave it a little bit longer to firm up. Now I want quite a thin drip, so I'm going to cut off a really small amount and then place this on the side of my glass. You also want to take into consideration how long the drips are coming down your glass so that you know how runny it is on the side of your cake. Now I'm quite happy with how that's running, so it's ready to add. First thing I'm going to do is add some of that ganache onto the top of my cake. Use my offset spatula just to bring this to the edge. Now I don't want to add too much at this stage because I don't want this ganache to run off the edge too much. You can see that I had a few drips come over from the top, but the rest is blank. Holding my piping bag on that top edge, spacing my drips around 1 inch apart, and the more ganache you allow to run out, the longer your drip is going to be. Your drips will continue to carry on down the cake until that ganache has firmed up. Now if they're at the perfect length and you want to stop them flowing, then just take your cake, pop it in the fridge, and this will help firm up that drip. The last thing I want to do is add some buttercream swirls onto the top. Now for these, I want to continue those pastel shades and create a bit of a rainbow effect. So I've created a small batch of buttercream and I've divided this into 5 bowls. Now taking my sprinkles as inspiration, I'm going to colour my buttercream to match the different colours on the sprinkles. With blue, sometimes if you add it to buttercream, it can go a little bit green. So add a small amount of purple. It's going to help combat that yellow in the buttercream. Now, if you haven't done it before, in order to get all of these colours into my piping bag together so we get a nice even distribution in our buttercream swirl, I'm going to be using some cling film. So I'm going to take my cling film or plastic wrap and just lay that down. So I've got quite a large sheet. I'm then going to use a spoon to take, first of all, that pink, create a line of my buttercream which is around about an inch in width. And you want to try and keep this as neat as possible. Now, if you imagine the size of your piping bag, this is going to fit inside, so you don't want to go too long. And you can do this with as many colours as you like. We're then going to roll this up. So I'm going to take the corners of one side, start to pull this over, trying to create a large sausage. When the two sides meet, I'm then going to push that in with my hand and just roll that up at both ends, twist that closed, and we're ready to add that into our piping bag. For my swirls, I'm going to be using the 2D piping tip, and this is a closed star piping tip, so all these points are coming over. Now this is going to give me a slightly ruffled buttercream swirl. Now, one tip with the 2D piping tip is you want to make sure that all of these points, when they come together, are leaving a slight gap in the middle. If those points have joined, this is going to create a gap in our swirl. So just take a knife, pop that inside, and just arch those back slightly. Snipping the end off of my piping bag and pulling that nozzle tight. Snip the end off of my cling film. Very carefully open up my piping bag and slot that all the way down. Don't worry if it doesn't go all the way down. When you apply pressure, we can push all of those colours through until you can see all of the colours coming out. I've taken my cake out of the fridge, and that ganache hasn't completely set, but it's firmed up enough that we can add our buttercream swirls to the top. Coming in around about an inch, I'm going to start applying pressure, work that round, and create a little swirl on the top of my cake. Now, in order to leave the right amount of space, you want to imagine the same size swirl next to this. So I'm going to go in, add another swirl next to that. I can then finish off the cake by taking some of my sprinkles and adding those to my swirls. And also some of the smaller ones just into the middle, covering some of that ganache. So here we have the finished pastel drip cake with these really pretty rainbow swirls on the top. I really hope you've enjoyed the video tutorial and will be able to use this cake design or elements from this cake in your own cake decorating. If you have enjoyed the video, as always, don't forget to give it a like, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget to subscribe to the Cake Splendens YouTube channel. You can also hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time we upload a new video. Now, I will put links in the description below to all the tools that I've used throughout today's video, plus the 10% off discount code for all the happy sprinkles. So until next time, bye!